You're welcome today to Searching Heart. We are, of course, in the Passover season. Today is Passover. Again, I'm wishing everybody celebrating Passover this time a happy Passover. And we know that Passover is, of course, a Jewish festival, but it is also celebrated by many Christians, a minority of Christians around the world, and is becoming a little popular, especially made popular by this ministry and other churches that have come out of the Armstrong denominations, formerly Armstrong denomination, okay, founded by Herbert W. Armstrong. But today, this is not the topic of today's podcast. Today, I'm going to be looking at a very terrible event that happened just on Sunday. Which was Palm Sunday, according to the Catholics. You know that Palm Sunday is a replica of the Passover season, okay, the Lenten season, which is also found in the Passover season. But of course, the dates are different from historical maneuverings of the historical Catholic Church. Okay, so this terrible thing happened on Palm Sunday, and about 8 p.m. it is said, at Garita Waye area of the Angon-Rukuba area here in Jos. Okay, now I grew up very close to Angon-Rukuba, just about a few hundred, maybe 500 meters or so away from Angon-Rukuba. Yes, probably about 500 meters away from Angon-Rukuba. I grew up there, and so I know this area very well. Okay, of course, the Jos town is growing, and so there are little anguas within anguas. What an angua is like, a little, maybe a street, within a bigger area. Okay, so Garita Waye is somewhere within the Angon-Rukuba area, and it was said to be attacked by bandits. Now, because we are so used to hearing about these attacks, it has become like an everyday thing, or every week thing, or every month thing, depends. And so it's been a while though that we've heard of such attacks within the Jos area, the town itself. And so within this podcast, I'll try to educate you on the town of Jos itself. Okay, because right now there is a picture coming up on the greater Jos area. Okay, Jos over the years has expanded like every other town has expanded, and the suburbs are now within the town. Okay, places that used to be suburbs are now really within the town. Now, Angon-Rukuba is not really a suburb. It is part of the main Jos town. Okay, but it is used to be at the very edge of the main Jos town. Okay, but it is actually can also qualify to be part of the very main Jos town. Okay, so this is what happened on Palm Sunday around 8 p.m. around that area. That area harbors a lot of people who can be said to be very indigenous to Jos itself. Of course, about 500 meters or more to the outskirts of that very area, Angon-Rukuba, are people who are known to be indigenous to Jos itself, who the tribe called the Anaguta tribe. Okay, they occupy the mountains called the Maza Hills, known popularly as the Maza Hills. Okay, and also towards the Faringada area. But of course, when you go around there today, you will see a diversity of people from all over the country. Okay, Hausa people, tribes from all over Nigeria, all around that Faringada area, spreading towards Bauchi Road. But Bauchi Road is very proximal to Angon-Rukuba itself. This is also on the map. You will see a map right now that will show you that Bauchi Road is very close to the Angorokuba area. Okay, although when you're driving in a car, maybe on ground, you will not notice that immediately. But when you look at it from an aerial perspective, you discover that they are practically neighbors. And this area has been historically known to be crisis prone since the Jos crisis began. Okay, because of this proximity between settling houses from Bauchi, I'll be talking about Bauchi as we go on. Okay, settling Hausa people from Bauchi who are predominantly Muslims, and some of the indigenous tribes, which are a mixture of the Anaguta, the Birom, and the Afizeri. Okay. Now we need to know a little more about these indigenous tribes. Okay. Now let me begin like this. Okay, let me begin like this. Tribes in Nigeria are very diverse. They are numerous in number. They were said to be about 250 post-independence, but now we're counting about 450. Okay, so there are so many, such that the larger tribes are actually made up of smaller tribes that speak different languages and dialects and subdialects of such languages. Okay, but in general, the trade language of the north of Nigeria is popularly known as Hausa language. Okay, and the trade language in the southwest is the Yoruba language. Okay, and then the southeast, the trade language is Igbo. Okay, is the Igbo language. And so people who don't really know Nigeria very well would think, okay, Nigeria is just made up of three tribes, which is Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. But that is not so. They are smaller tribes. Okay, other bigger tribes like the Kanuri in the northeast. We see tribes like the Gwari in the central part, the Kaduna down to Abuja area. We see tribes like the Jukun in the northwest or the western part. Okay, not the west, sorry, in the eastern part of Nigeria, sorry. Then you have northeastern also. Then you have the tribes like the Ngas, the Mangu, the Birom, and tribes like the Afiziri and the Anaguta, as I've mentioned, which are smaller tribes. Okay, but they are tribes that occupy the plateau region. Tribes like the Anaguta, the Birom, the Afiziri, the Rukuba, the Taria, the Abuji, the Ngas, the Mangu, or the Magovul, as they are known, the Tarok, the Mushere, so many of them within the plateau area. Okay, so these are smaller tribes. So let me not divert. Let me just come back to the people I'm talking about, who are the Anaguta tribe that actually are supposed to occupy this area called Angorokuba. Now, but we find that they are, of course, because this small tribe called the Anaguta people are actually a sub-tribe of a bigger tribe. Okay, related tribes. Now, who are these related tribes? The related tribes are the Birom and the Afiziri. Okay, the Anaguta are somehow, hemmed in between these two tribes. Okay, the Birom and the Afiziri, and they have other tribes to the north of them, or to the northwest, as it were, of them, who are the Rukuba, the Taria, and the Buji. And the Rukuba have been known to make inroads into Anaguta territory, okay? And that is why that area is called Angorokuba. Okay, historically, whether through trade or through a war, they have been known to make inroads into that area. And they at the time formed a little settlement in that area, which is actually an Anaguta area. And that's why that place is called Angorokuba. Okay? And of course, that attack that happened on Palm Sunday was actually within Angorukuba, a smaller street, within Angorukuba, which is called Garita. Why? Okay, so this is what we see here. Now I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to try to take us down history lane. Now, historically, there are a lot of things that have happened within this area. Okay, I've already mentioned the frequent intertribal conflicts between the Rukuba and the Anaguta. Okay, and in those days, those tribes were not really known to the whole world. So probably, they have their little. It will take an Anaguta person, a Biron person, or an Afiziri person, or a Rukuba person to tell you some of the details about these conflicts. I'm not going to dwell on that today, but that happened. Okay, and there was a conflict between the Rukuba and the Anaguta. Now, it is not known whether this conflict was pre the invasion of the House of Fulani, or maybe happened at the same time, but there was a conflict that took place. Okay, and within this time, shortly after this conflict, the House of Fulani invasion began. Okay, and we know from history that there have been also many conflicts within the greater Kwararafa. You can refer to that video about the Kwararafa. Okay, and the Borno Empire. Okay, of course, the Borno took over later on. The House of Fulani also invaded the Borno. Okay, so this is what happened. So the Ottoman Danfodio Jihad created a greater conflict, which came down right down to this area called Jos. But before they attacked Jos, they already conquered Bauchi. Okay, now Bauchi is just north of Jos. Okay, it is known historically to be the enclave of tribes that were very well related to the tribes you find now in the Plateau region of Nigeria. Okay, remember Jos is the capital of Plateau State in Nigeria. Okay, so the Bauchi area was an enclave of these tribes. Okay, who were actually part of the greater Kwararafa kingdom that was governed from Wukari in Taraba State. Okay, so this was an area governed by a larger tribe called the Kwararafa, but of course they had their other names that they were referred to. Okay, and they are known for the Nok culture. Of course, we know that. So this is what happened. As the Kwararafa had already been defeated a long time ago by the Borno, but the jihad created what we know right now as the Bauchi Emirate. Okay, the House of Fulani leading the jihad were able to, create an incursion into the Bauchi area, sending away a major part of the people in that area. And it is agreed that some of those people are the Ngas people who now occupy the highlands, the mountains in Southern Plateau, the highland areas of Southern Plateau. Southern Plateau, you have the lowland and the highland areas, okay? So the Ngas occupy the highland areas of Southern Plateau, okay? And that is why when Captain Folks came, he actually thought that they were Gmai people, okay? Because the Gmai people have a kingdom right there in Southern Plateau. But when he studied closer, he discovered that the Ngas were very different from the Gmai people, and that they had come from somewhere else, okay? And so it is believed that they came from that Bauchi area, and they were the people who were conquered in the Bauchi area, and they actually ran away back home because they actually came from that area, okay, to the highlands that are believed to be less fertile, of course, and less prized property. So if you listen to some of my talks, I've told you that that place that is now called Ngasland is actually a very giant refugee camp, okay, because they actually, in history, before they were conquered, they actually come from the Bauchi area. So this is because of the jihad. So the House of Fulani established themselves in the Bauchi area, and from there conducted raids into the Plateau area. But of course, because of the high elevation of the Plateau area, it was difficult for them to conquer the tribes on the Plateau. Okay, that is why the Ngas people ran into the Plateau area. Because of the high elevation. From there, they could actually, they had the higher ground and they could face their enemies. So the tribes there on the Plateau area are these tribes we're talking about: the Anakuta, the Bibrom, the Afisari, the Rukuba, and the Mangu people. Now, when you look at the Mangu people very closely, you discover that they are very closely related to the Ngas. And that is how we know that the Ngas actually came from here, and occupied the Bauchi area before they were conquered back, in the greater Kwararafa kingdoms, okay? And the Ngas are also known to have gone all the way to the Borno area, okay, historically, okay? So that is why Captain Folks called the Ngas colonials, okay? He was able to discover this, that the Ngas were people who traveled far and wide. And so he called them colonials, people who actually originated from the Plateau area, but were able to move their kingdom right into the Borno area before the Borno people, for some reason, historical reason, you can study that on your own, decided to, divide the kingdoms, as it were. And that was followed by the jihad. Okay, so this is a historical precedent. Okay, now up to today, when you go to Bauchi, you will see the old wall of the Bauchi area showing the conquest of the House of Fulani of that area. Okay, but when you go there, you will see the smaller tribes who are the Sayawa, who are known to be related to the Ngas. Okay. And when you go there, you see a lot of Ngas people living among the Sayawa, confirming that history, okay, as well as other histories of the Ngas people. When they face problems in their own land, they still come back to edge out a living among the Sayawa, okay. So this is what happened. So because Jos was a difficult terrain, this slowed down the jihad, okay. The Jos area, the Plateau area, is a difficult terrain to conquer. It slowed down the jihad. There were frequent inroads, but it substantially slowed down the jihad. Okay, and that is why many of the tribes in the Jos Plateau area were not properly Islamized. Okay, until the colonials came, and it was the colonial Britain that was responsible through the missionaries for evangelizing the Plateau people to Christianity. And it is said also in Christian the ancient traditions of especially the Ngas people, that they deliberately rejected Islam because of their awareness of the existence of Christianity. Okay, their ancestors had very close contact with Christians, ancient Christians, and that is why they rejected Islam. And when Christianity came, it was far better for some of them who accepted Christianity very easily. Although these were known to be tribes that were steeped in paganism. Okay, they believed so much in paganism. So in the inroads of the Hausa Fulani up on the plateau, they met so many tribes, and some of those tribes were the Anaguta, which sometimes they traded with. They created a settlement right there, at the fringes of Jos, which is Bauchi Road. That is why at Bauchi Road now, there's a Hausa settlement, okay, and the people who call themselves the Jasawa, because when they came in, the tribes found shelter on the mountains, and they were able to settle there in those areas without any much resistance. Okay, and so within those times, they were able to have sometimes uneasy trade relationships with the tribes on their way as they went. Sometimes they conquered some of them on the plateau, and as they went, they never completely conquered the Birom, they never completely conquered the Naguta, they never completely conquered the Mangu. And this is an important point in history that we need to understand. When they came to the Mangu and they established a camp at Mangu, at a point, in the presence of the colonials, they mounted a very heavy attack on the Mangu people. Now, like I told you, the Mangu people are related to the Ngas people. Okay, they are essentially one tribe. Okay, just as the Anaguta, the Birom, and Afisiri are essentially one tribe, but having different languages, of course, which were initially dialects within one language, of course. So the Mangu and the Bokos and the part of the Bokos, not all the Bokos, and the Ngas were the same tribe, of course, but having different tribes. Even if you go to the Ngas today, there are so many smaller tribes within the Ngas, so many smaller tribes within the Mangu, and all that. So because as they move apart, of course, the dialects change. So this is what happened. So when they went to Mangu to face the people in Mangu, it is well recorded that the Mangu defeated the Fulani there and turned them back. Now, some of those defeats were what preserved most of the plateau area. Some of those little defeats, okay, against the Fulani, preserved the plateau area, such that most of the people on the plateau are now Christians, okay, and not Muslims. Okay, so this is what happened. Although there are pockets of Muslim settlements throughout the plateau, of course we know that the Muslims were able to come through the Bauchi area and conquer through around the Wasi area. That is why there's a large population of them around there, Wasi and Kanam area, of course. So they were slowly trying to conquer the plateau area, although they had also moved down into the Nasarawa area, which is outside Plateau State, down into the Abuja area and the Gwari territory, and they had conquered many tribes along the way, right up to the Nupe land, which was at the border of Yoruba land, even coming close to Benin, where they forged trade relationships there, and even partially into Yoruba land. Okay, so this is what we see. The jihad was easier on lower land, but it was harder to accomplish on higher land. And Plateau was one part of those higher territories that they could not properly conquer. Okay, so this is what really happened. Okay, so especially as they were defeated in Mangu, by forces, of course, I'm sure that were brought together by the presence of the Ngas, presence of the the Ron people, the Misheri people, the presence of the Shandam people all down south. So these people probably participated in beating the Fulani, okay? So this is what was happening, okay? And of course, folks noted very clearly that that the Ngas were freely moving from Gamailand up into Ngasland. You know, they were freely moving there, up and down. At the time he saw them, okay, he encountered them. So this is very important in knowing the history of Plateau State. And to go back to the spots in which the attack took place just last week, this is a spot that is a border point between Anaguta and Birom settlements and the Hausa settlements in the very center of Georgetown, okay, where they settled when they first began to attack the Jos area, okay. So this is the thing. And when Nigeria was established as a country after the colonial invasion, of course, the colonials stopped such wars between those tribes, okay? By invading all the tribes in Nigeria, they stopped the wars, they stopped slave trade and stopped the wars. And in the process, of course, instituted a government and called the area they had conquered Nigeria. And of course, because of that, you know, the indigenous became more powerful because of their own land. You know, because of course this is their own land, so they became far more powerful. You know, and there has been political crises because those Hausa Fulani Muslims who settled in the center of Georgetown were trading there with the Anaguta and the Birom, you know, began to demand a right of citizenship, a right of indigenship. In fact, they clearly assumed they were indigens, you know, from the onset. And this later on created a crisis between them and the local indigenous, who are the Afizuri, the Naguta, and the Birom, okay? And this led to the crisis we see today, okay, which has metamorphosized from a tribal crisis now to a religious crisis, okay? So this is the problem. And the reason why it is now mainly a religious crisis is because there are many Muslims who are Christians. Okay, Hausas, sorry. There are many Hausas and Fulanis who are Christians. And, you know, there are some indigenous who are Muslims. Okay, so this is the issue. That is why now, instead of tribal differences, religious differences are elevated. You know, it is just a sociological development. Okay, so now we will talk about a little more about the geography of this area. So to round up this video, okay, of course I've always said refer to my video on the history of the Jos crisis, okay. Yes, it is a very, very important material to know some of the things that you might not get from this video, okay. Now the pictures I'm going to be posting right now on the screen, for somebody who is coming to Jos, when you look at this, you'll be able to at least get a better view on the Jos area itself, okay. The Jos area is made up of 3 local governments, which is the Jos North, the Jos South, and the Jos East, okay. And of course, traditionally the Jos South is an enclave of the Birom. Traditionally Jos North should be an enclave of the Anaguta, and Jos East the enclave of the Afizuri. Okay, but of course there are interlocking boundaries, and like I said, other tribes from all over, because Jos is the capital city of the Plateau State, or the Plateau region, or state, and so many tribes come from all over the country and they are living here, which include the House of Fulani, okay. And of course this was a creation of the colonials and later improved by local administrations that took over from the colonials, okay. So this is what you will find today. And of course, when you come into Jos, you see Angon Rukuba right at the fringes of the Jos town, located in Jos North local government. And of course, this is the enclave of the Anaguta, traditionally, okay. but of course it's occupied by House of Fulani people coming from all over the country at this time. Forget about those who started the jihad. No, those have died a long time ago. These are people from all over the country, okay, but they find an enclave in that central area, okay. And so because of the border between these indigenous and also very well mingled tribes, but popularly Christian, and the more Muslim people, anytime there is tension, there is a tendency of something happening around that area, okay. So it is difficult for security forces to stem that because of the proximity, and if there are any bad eggs, of course that would happen. Now of course these maps I'm showing you will give you a very, very clear idea of the geography of the area, okay. So in case you're in Jos and you want to know where to go, where not to go, okay, you're better off in the Jos South area, you're better off Jos East area. Yes, when you get to Jos North, you have to be careful because there's that tendency, yes, to be caught up in something. So this is the issue at stake, okay. So before I finish this video, I want to give a note of warning, okay. Some of the crises that we experience, like we experience all over the world, are not purely just religious issues, okay. Some of the crises are also intertribal disagreements, okay, political disagreements. Yes, and some of these things go and fire up religious sentiments, okay, because not everybody waits to hear, oh, who am I fighting? He assumes the popular enemy, okay. Something happens and I just assume, oh, it must be that person. It may not always be. Some of these things are religious, political conflicts, okay. So we must consider that while being aware that the most, what will I say now, explosive concept is the religious concept, okay. So also there are little also denominations within Christianity itself. We've had within Islam the Sunni and the Shia aspect, which have their own names here in Nigeria, clashing within one another. And so even in the Christian, there are little denominational problems, okay. And it is not unheard of for miscreants to use denominational differences to create crises, to achieve their own personal aims. So of course you might come across such things and it might create confusion, but you need to be able to understand this within the larger problem. And like I have said in my previous videos, the larger problem is the jihad. And once we can take care of that jihad problem, good, we can now focus on the other issues, okay. And in fact, they are using the jihad to now cover the suppression of, little minorities who might not be Muslim nor Christian, okay. And some of them are minority Christian denominations, okay. So that is very, very rife, and we must be careful not to be too led by the popular narrative. We must be investigation prone rather than just assuming, okay. And it's good to be security conscious, okay. Don't be in places you should not be at all times of the night. If you're a visitor, like I said, keep to the Jos South, Jos East, Jos South and Jos East areas, and where there are many government institutions. Yes, more than in the slums, because in the slums there's a high probability of something happening. So this is just what a kind of recap, and it's a very unfortunate event that took place on Palm Sunday. And like I said, the government in Nigeria needs to be called to order to be able to, the awareness should be raised. We need more police officers on the street, okay, uniformed police officers. I believe, from my own observations, okay, we need to bring down the crime rate. There was a year where it is known that a recharge card caused mayhem in the name of religion. Somebody bought a recharge card, didn't want to pay, or was cheated of the change, okay, and it caused crisis. So crime, we need to reduce crime, okay, by eliminating poverty, okay, by having the presence of police personnel, by rooting out corruption from the police and from the military. Okay, this will go a long way in solving some of these crises. I am David Dunjichinke for you today in Searching the Heart.
Discover a transformative journey into the kingdom of heaven. Following the initial publication, the author dives deeper with 2 insightful follow-up books. Ever felt disconnected from God even in worship? Explore how God's unconventional ways can transform your life. How can you align with divine plans, avoiding distractions? Find answers in The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth, and The 3, Illuminating Christian Truths and Prophetic Practices. Unlock profound insights guiding you toward a deeper connection with God. Don't miss out. Dive into this enlightening exploration today. Click the link on the caption to get your copy.